Hello and welcome to the Blueprint video podcast. The Blueprint, as you perhaps know by now, is the Business Standard newspaper's new magazine on defense and geopolitics that combines insightful analysis and in-depth reporting to present perspectives on the news that matter the most. Our guest for this second episode of the Blueprint video podcast is Navtej Sarna. Mr. Sarna has been India's ambassador to the United States from 2016 to 2018. Before that, he was India's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom in 2016, as well as India's ambassador to Israel from 2008 until 2012. Mr. Sarna has the distinction of being the longest-serving spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs to date. 6 years? Mr. Sarna has also written novels, short stories, and essays, more so since his retirement. Now he is a commentator on foreign policy matters. I am Satarupa Bhattacharjya. The broad focus of our podcasts is India's strategic goals and challenges. Today, we will be talking about India's relationship with the world's most powerful country, the United States. Mr. Sarna, let me start with the most obvious question, trade. So, India and the United States have built a relationship over the last 20 years. Some people say painstakingly so. And both countries in official documents have identified that relationship as being strategic in nature. Both countries share intelligence as well. When President Trump took office earlier this year, soon after Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Washington, D.C., things looked to be going well. Then the Trump administration announced tariffs on American imports, including from India. The relationship started to fray. Where are we currently?
Well, we are not in a good place as far as the United States is concerned, because, as you said, this is a relationship which, for the last, I would say, quarter of a century, has been steadily growing. It's been moving, it's been deepening in many aspects, not just trade, but, defense, security, overall a strategic relationship, as you mentioned. And I think it has been worked at on both sides very assiduously, no matter who was in the White House or, in fact, which government was in position, in power in India. Because there was a certain presumption that this relationship it fits in with the kind of world that we want. And India was talked of as the great partner for the United States in the 21st century, and so on and so forth. And you're right, when the Trump second term started, we saw it as a continuum of the first term of Trump.
Right.
And we were quite confident, I think, and now it's in hindsight, it seems wrongly so, that we could continue the same way, that we would have differences, say, on trade, we would possibly have differences on immigration, but overall the direction of the relationship would remain positive and continue to move upwards. And the Prime Minister was amongst the first, I think he was the fourth world leader to meet President Trump. Things were moving along reasonably well. But then today, from February to November, there's been virtually a sea change in the relationship, and possibly for the first time since 1998, when we had the nuclear tests and there were sanctions and various things like that. Possibly since 98, we haven't had such a difficult time. And that time we at least knew why we were having a difficult time, and we were quite convinced that what we had done needed to be done. But in this year, there have been quite inexplicable steps taken by President Trump and his administration, which seems that India is almost, a country that the United States doesn't really care about. So that's where we are on trade, on H-1B visas, on the overall atmosphere, on the relationship with China,
Right.
on the relationship with Pakistan. We can talk about details when you want. But, both in the strategic terms and in particular terms of tariffs, etc., India has had the wrong end of the stick, perhaps more than any other country. And this is strange, given the fact that, we were a country which fitted into the American worldview very well. And we have so much going with the relationship. It's become such a wide relationship. But
Did India try too hard?
no, I don't think it's a question of trying too hard. It's a question of, in fact, many countries have tried much harder. If you say it and tried too hard in terms of trying to please Trump.
Or just trying to ally with the United States?
No, I don't think we ever allied with the United States, but we were in a partnership which we thought we worked to the mutual benefit of both the countries. They needed us as a counterweight against China,
Yeah.
as a bookend of the Indo-Pacific, as a huge market, as a supplier of technically qualified people, as a partner with whom there was greater confidence, say, in defense exercises.
Right.
So, and we needed them obviously, because if you have to move to the next level of technology, you have to, science, etc., you need the United States. And that is why, both countries thought that it was a great partnership to have. So I don't think we tried too hard in that sense.
Okay. So I'll get back on the topic of China and, the wider issues in the region. But still on trade, I want to ask you, so after 6 rounds of talks with the US since March, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal told the media recently that India is negotiating a fair, equitable and balanced trade deal with the United States. Do you see a breakthrough given that the US has slapped 50% tariffs on Indian goods, and a sticking point with President Trump has been the trade surplus on India's side, which he claimed a different figure, but according to the Ministry of External Affairs is around $50 billion.
Possibly less. Okay. So yes, the trade balance issue is not new. He's had this bee in his bonnet since 2016. And the fact is that trade balances in the global trading system as it has evolved in the last few decades are not something that people worry about, because we are not looking at exactly that we must have a positive trade balance with everybody.
Right.
That's not how the world trade has worked. World trade has worked through a global supply chain system, and people have not seen the trade balance to be such a major issue. Of course, everybody likes a positive trade balance, but that doesn't happen. We have a negative trade balance over 100 billion with China.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but Trump has this bee in the bonnet about the trade balance. So, lessening that trade balance has been an effort that India has consistently made, even in its first term. We started buying more oil,
right,
and gas from the United States. We bought a lot of Boeing aircraft, because India's civil aviation industry is one of the fastest growing in the world. And so
and
on.
And a lot of defense goods.
And a lot of defense, of course. Yeah. And that is something which is still going on. The effort to relieve the trade balance, in visual terms, it makes us look better in Trump's eyes.
Right.
So I think that effort will continue. But the point is that for Trump, trade is no longer just trade.
Yeah.
Trade, he has weaponized trade. So he can bring in anything into trade and say that, no, I don't want a deal because these guys are not doing it there. I mean, he did it with Brazil, he's done it with other countries.
Yeah.
So we don't quite know when he wants to agree to a deal. I think positive comments have been made in India now several times that we're expecting it in the fall, we're expecting it in the winter. I'm not sure. I think it will happen when he wants it to happen, and that may not be related to trade at all.
Right.
He is weaponized tariffs. He says so himself. He's said, I threatened India with tariffs, and that's why they stopped Operation Sindoor.
Right.
So I'm not sure when the deal will come through or when this breakthrough will come through. And frankly, I'm not sure that this will be enough. Even if he does get a trade deal or we get a trade deal, which is good for us and manages to relieve pressure on tariffs. Because one thing there will be that if you have a trade deal, you can't still have 50% tariffs. Right. I mean, it's ridiculous to have a trade deal and 50% tariffs.
Yeah.
So obviously there will have to be a reduction. No, that will be good for us because it will relieve the pressure on our economy, say on our shrimp farmers and other things.
Farmers, fisher folk,
yeah,
many other sectors. Yeah.
But will that be enough for the entire relationship to come back to normal? I have serious doubts.
Okay. All right. So moving from trade to security, which is a prominent part of the relationship, on October 31st, India and the US signed a pact that is supposed to guide bilateral defense cooperation for the next 10 years. I'm wondering if that will work given the current uncertainty in the India-US relations.
Well, that is a, decadal framework that has been signed. A similar one was signed in 2005, another one was signed in 2015. So this is a decadal framework. So this is good. The fact that's good for perception that yes, India is still a major defense partner, and the US is committed in a larger way to security, not just of India, but to regional security, and to working with India in furthering common security objectives. How that works out, I mean, yes, it will provide for regular meetings, it will provide for regular recalibration, review, and so on. How that works in terms of actual benefits for us, yes, sales, of course. Yeah. The US is keen to sell us more and more defense equipment. Even today or yesterday, they have taken some decisions to release the Javelin and Excalibur projectiles and so on. We still don't know how things will work out in terms of technology transfer, joint cooperation, joint production. Those are things which are still in the very early stages. We've had one example of the GE engine, but let's see how widely we can move this. But yes, in the fact that it shows that a certain part of the relationship is on track and is moving the way it has been moving, it's a reassuring development.
Right. And India has bought defense goods worth some $20 billion since 2008.
Yeah.
And I think President Trump has been trying to urge India to buy more. So do you expect more defense purchases in the next year?
Well, I think defense purchases will continue to increase. We've just, as I said, we've just bought about 90 million worth has been cleared right now. So I think defense purchases, if we can get the critical equipment that we want from any particular supplier, we will do so, and that is something again which will look good in terms of Trump's eyes, that India is buying less from Russia and more from us. And that, I suppose, continue
But Russia is offering some kind of technology transfer, which the United States hasn't.
Yes, but we will have to see how far India is willing to go on that, and I think President Putin's upcoming visit might be a good occasion to see what is actually on offer.
Yeah.
I think there's talk of a fifth generation aircraft and so on. Russia has been supplying us, defense equipment for decades.
Plus, there's co-production. Take it with BrahMos or the Sukhois.
Yes, so there are all those things, but today we are still buying much less from Russia. I think we used to buy almost 65, 70%.
70 in the heyday.
Yes, and today
it's come down to 36 or less.
40 or something, So I think we have been diversifying. Russia is also, in a place where they are at war themselves. So there are, there will be issues of delays. For instance, in the S-400, there are issues of delayed deliveries.
The batteries are still pending too.
Yeah. So I think we will continue to diversify for more reason than simply pleasing Mr. Trump.
Okay. So after his meeting with the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, on the sidelines of the ASEAN Plus Defense Ministers meeting in Kuala Lumpur on October 31st, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said, quote, "Our partnership is critical for ensuring a free, open and rules-based Indo-Pacific region," unquote. Again, the question is, how will that happen? How would that happen if President Trump is not invested or not seen to be invested in this region, or if the United States' pivot to Asia has changed?
But that is the whole issue, that we are talking of a free and open Indo-Pacific. We are talking of India and the US being critical partners. We are talking of the Quad.
Yes.
Which was a very essential element of keeping a free and open Indo-Pacific. And this was the strategy that, has been in place even in Trump's first term. Because you must remember that the Quad was actually revived under Trump's first term. But now there is a change. And I think what we say may be good in theory, and it may be good wishful thinking. But we have to see how far it plays out on the ground now. For instance, we haven't had a Quad summit in Trump's second term.
India was supposed to host this year. Why didn't it happen?
Well, I don't see, summits just can't happen just because they're supposed to happen on a particular day. There have to be deliverables, there have to be agreement, there have to be agreed priorities.
Right.
And things have to build up to a summit. So you can't really have such a huge, sort of trade war going on.
Yeah.
You can't have so many differences on so many fronts. And then imagine that President Trump will come here and have a great summit. So in many ways, it's good it didn't happen, because you need to create the right atmosphere for a summit.
But for 10 years prior, if you look at the Quad members, the United States, Australia, Japan, and India, in fact, India was slow to warm up to Quad, also about thinking about China's sensitivities in the region. And finally, when India came on board, it was ready to host the summit, etc. But are we going to now see the Quad not function optimally until President Trump's second term ends?
Well, at the moment, it seems that Trump is not committed very much to the Quad. He's committed to transactional relations in the Indo-Pacific. He's visited the Southeast Asian countries. He's made deals with Japan, with Korea, with Australia. He's willing to work with these countries and show interest. It's not that he doesn't want to be in the Indo-Pacific, but it's for his reasons. It's for the, what has been called the military, the markets, and the money. So, he wants to sell defense equipment. He wants investments from these countries. Japan has committed something like $600 billion, etc., in the United States, and so he's dealing with these purely for his transactional benefits,
Right.
for the investment he can get, for the military equipment that he can sell to these countries. So to that extent, he's invested in the Indo-Pacific, but he's not. There are no signs yet that he's invested in the Quad or the Indo-Pacific as a bulwark against China,
Right, right.
as something in which you have to build up, public goods to counter China, like we were doing, vaccine development and technology cooperation and education and scholarships and so on and so forth, communications, which were based on a fundamentally different paradigm than what the Chinese are offering.
Right.
And that's how you keep it free and open. If you let China run all this, then it's not going to be free and open. It's going to run on Chinese paradigms and Chinese technology and controlled by Chinese industry and thinking. Now, on that front, I think there's been a retreat. We haven't really seen anything happen which restores that confidence. And that is perhaps why I think until and unless a Quad summit happens, we really won't know.
And you don't foresee that happening anytime soon? Next year?
Well, they're talking about next year, but I think a lot of things will have to happen. Bilateral relations will have to improve. The United States in particular would have to show a commitment to Quad, want to work with the other countries together. But today they are more busy working with China, or softening up to China. And the Chinese don't like the Quad, obviously.
Yeah, obviously they don't.
Call it a Asian NATO.
NATO, absolutely.
So, obviously we'll have to see where the needle stops. How much is he willing to
move towards China?
Yeah,
maybe.
it's,
or away
show strength against China,
right,
rather than sort of say, okay, let's coexist. This so-called G2. I don't know what it means, but his
Great Two, perhaps.
Yeah, his G2 simply means that, okay, let's divide the world between the two of us.
Between the two powers.
I'm not sure the Chinese are ready for that, honestly.
Yeah. So, because you spoke about this as well, so President Trump met Chinese President Xi Jinping in Busan, South Korea on 30th October. So one day before Rajnath Singh met Pete Hegseth. And President Trump said that the U.S. would cut tariffs on Chinese goods by 10%, etc., from 57%, because China promised to help them better with the opioid crisis that's in the United States and a concern for President Trump. And you spoke about how President Trump seems to be giving the impression that is moving towards China or extending, a friendly gesture towards China. My question is, if there is a possible realignment between the two great powers, should India be concerned? Because there is already some anxiety within strategic think tanks in India that a realignment will not be good for India. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a given. Because you talked of the meeting, honestly, before we get to the realignment. I think even in that meeting, the Chinese really didn't do much. They just gave him where they were a year ago.
Yeah, they talked about fentanyl.
Yeah, we'll reduce, we'll try to curb fentanyl, we'll try to not charge you port fees, etc. And these were just a minor change from now to where they were a year ago. There's no great concessions, but he reduced tariffs by 10%.
Yeah.
So in many ways, I think the Chinese have a very strong hand vis-a-vis the Americans, particularly on the rare earths. They've agreed to give, not to put restrictions for a while. So we'll see how that goes. I think it matters to India because one of the strategic sort of glues between the India and the United States for the last 15 years at least was the recognition by the United States that China is rising and China is going to be our major strategic competitor. So we need to get India on our side. Now, whether we like it or not, that was an important factor in the improving India-US relationship. So if that strategic glue goes away, then we are really adrift on our own.
Right.
So it is a matter of concern. You can't control it, and you can't sort of also sit away sulking in the corner that, if you're talking to him, you can't talk to me. That's not how diplomacy works. So we will have to, sort of work around this.
Yeah, and the US and the Chinese economies are deeply connected as well.
They are deeply connected, and if the the bipartisan consensus that had built up, that India is important as a strategic partner because we must counter China, that has begun to fray.
Right.
Or has frayed in the United States. So we will have to take that into account into our strategic thinking also.
Moving on from the United States for just a bit. So one of your early postings was at the Indian Embassy in Moscow.
Earliest post.
Earliest. Okay. So I know you talked a bit about President Vladimir Putin's India visit, which is happening, I believe, sometime in early December.
I think the 5th of December.
Yeah, the dates have not been announced
possibly
yet.
First week.
Yeah, first week or so. Other than defense, because I don't think they have announced the signing of any major deals yet. But what are your broad expectations from this visit?
Well, I think it's not something new. We've had several summits. I think 22 summits. So this will be 23rd summit. But Putin hasn't been here for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
2021, I think, was his last visit. So that's an important visit in itself. That's an important message to the world.
Right.
And I'm sure Mr. Trump will be watching. So I think rather than, completely getting into specifics, I think first we have to see the broad importance of that visit in terms of showing that India has several partners. India is working with Russia. India has an old relationship with Russia, but India is also willing to work in the new context with Russia. I mean, the new context means you have improved Russia-China relations. You have adversarial US-Russia relations. You have problematic India-US relations. So it's nothing is sort of at a standstill. Things are sort of moving around. So in this new world, we are, happy to work with the Russians also to find common ground to up the relationship. And of course, defense is one aspect, and we have an old relationship. We have legacy weapons, we have spares, we have the issue of S-400s, and so on and so forth. But we also have to work on trade.
Right.
India has a relatively small trade with Russia. We're about 70 billion.
And we also have a deficit with Russia.
We have a deficit, but we have to now also look for new markets.
Right.
So, our industry, our business people also have to look beyond the comfort zones of US and Europe.
But what are we going to sell to Russia?
Well, there's agriculture, there's marine products.
Like shrimp.
Yes. And so we are looking, we have to find ways and means to move on those things, get greater market access in Russia. And there's labor. Now, one of the things people are talking about is a possible labor mobility agreement. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But in the sense of Russia needs labor. And we have surplus labor. We are trying to send them all over the place. So maybe we can send some people to Russia.
Will they be able to withstand the cold?
I think cold, when you're paid enough, you withstand anything. So I'm sure, I don't think the cold is such a problem. A lot of Indians have lived in Russia.
Okay. So my question linked to this is that even if India wants to diversify markets and it's looking at Russia as a market, but India also relies on Russia for crude. And India, along with China, has bought a lot of oil from Russia over the past few years. Do you think the threat of sanctions from the United States might force Indian companies? We are already seeing some signs of, crude purchases going down. In fact, there was a news this morning that it's at a record low, a 3-year low, the Indian loadings of Russian oil. Do you foresee a situation where India buys less and less oil from Russia? And would that be primarily because of US pressure?
I don't think it'll be primarily because of US pressure, because, if you look back 3 or 4 years, we weren't buying much Russian crude. So this increased because the availability was there. There were huge discounts on Russian oil, and it reduced our oil import bill very significantly.
Right.
So I think it was a logical choice that India made, and India wasn't going to, bend to US sanctions simply. But today they have sanctioned, not today means in the last few weeks, they have sanctioned two Russian majors, Lukoil and Rosneft.
Yeah.
And that opens up the area of secondary sanctions on a lot of our importers, who also have had dependence upon the dollar finance systems. So obviously you will see a drop in those. Also the discounts have fallen. So I think it's also probably a mere economic calculation as to where to buy. So it all might fit into President Trump's narrative that my tariffs have reduced India's imports from Russia. And, he's free to use that narrative. And I think it's also a fact that our oil majors will worry about secondary sanctions. But I think we have demonstrated fairly strongly that we will not let simply the whims and fancies or unilateral sanctions by one country influence our strategic decision making, and that the larger imports in the last few years have shown that.
Okay. Coming back to President Trump, he has repeatedly said in public that he stopped the India-Pakistan conflict in May. You mentioned that as well earlier, by talking trade concessions to both countries. And the Indian government has denied such assertions. So will the India-US relationship survive President Trump's second tenure, or has he upended ties for the long term?
This is a difficult question, because certainly the relationship will survive. And if you presume that Trump goes through the next 3 years, we also have to worry about who comes. If it is Mr. J.D. Vance, what is going to be his attitude? So what is going to be the strategic thinking in the United States by then? What is going to be their view of China by then? So I think you can't simply say that Mr. Trump will go and we'll go back to status quo ante on everything. I think a lot of damage will have been done. The relationship will certainly survive. How long it takes us to bring it back to a relationship of trust, a relationship in which we don't have domestic opposition to that relationship. That was something which took us a long way to bring it there, and now it's lost. So I think there will be a residual feeling in India, in Indian policymakers, that, remember what they did to us 3 years ago? Do you want to really go on this with them? So those questions, that skepticism about the India-US relationship, I think that will be the biggest inheritance post-Trump.
And for India now, the path is alone.
No,
It always
it's not.
was.
It's not alone. It's not that we have to be realistic on what the U.S. has done and what is doing to us. We have to be realistic as to how much we are going to recover. We have to be realistic about their improving relations with China. So we cannot have a dependencies in terms of strategic partnership.
Right.
You know, that question has opened up. So we won't be alone, but we have to make sure we build up other relationships in a credible manner, in a manner in which there is an element of trust and there are real vested interests, whether it's with Russia or an improved relationship with China or relationships with the other Quad partners, even without the Quad, with Australia, with Japan, with Korea.
Maritime relations
No,
as well,
and
or
trade relations,
trade
technology
relations,
relations,
security.
rare earth
Yeah.
relations. We also have to
Chips.
work on all those things. So I think the fact is that we should take this as a wake up sign and strengthen ourselves.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we are alone in the sense that a lot of countries today are looking inwards.
Yeah.
And they are wanting to increase their own strengths so that their dependencies, which have been shaken firstly by COVID and then by Trump's second term, that they are less and less dependent on other countries. It's not a time when where you can look at the world like a global family.
Right.
It's no longer a global family. It's several big houses who are fighting with each other.
So basically, what you are saying, if I may say so, is that India continues to maintain its strategic autonomy the way it was doing, much more so now than before. And I guess it's uncertain times, so we don't know which way we are headed. But I think India should safeguard its interests and move on. And if the United States wants to be a friend, very well. But if not, then India has to look out for its own interests.
We'll have to, in either case, we have to look out for our own interests. If the relationship with the United States does start improving, then that's all to the good.
Mr. Sarna, thank you for your time and the insights. I hope you enjoyed watching the podcast. You can read the transcript in the printed version of the magazine in December. Until the next episode of this podcast, goodbye.